Chapter 9. Fires of the Hills. For over 100 years, the Fires of the Hills festival had been a cherished tradition in Goodhots. Held on the first Sunday after mid-October, it brought the people together for feasting, bonfires, dancing, singing, and merrymaking that lasted late into the night. It had been 9 years since Ferry's parents last attended the festival, and for them, it felt like a long-awaited return. To mark the occasion, Ferry's mum prepared a sumptuous feast, a savory meat pie, refreshing pumpkin juice, and a delicious sponge cake oozing with blackberry jam. The Pride and Haughty families, the most important in Goodhots, erected their tents atop the central hill. Beneath the billowing white canopies, elaborate tables adorned with luxurious food and drinks were set up. Among the esteemed guests were the mayor, the town's doctor, Mr. Goodfellow, and the school's headmaster, Mr. Bell. The parents enjoyed delicious food, drinks, and good company, while the children gathered in a large group on top of the hill. With only one warning: stay away from the forest. It was a perfect autumn day with plenty of sunshine and clear skies. Ferry, Matilda and Ben joined the lively group atop the hill. Nearly all the children from Ferry's class were there, each of them holding a kite's rope for the annual contest. Some had help from their parents, others had made them by themselves. Matilda's kite was shaped like a giant green boot, while Ben's took the form of a rocket covered in aluminum foil. Ferry's kite resembled a raven, of course. Still, the most impressive kites were, as usual, the ones of Billy Pride and Cecilia Haughty, bought ahead of time from the big city. Billy's kite was a green dragon with a giant tail of golden little bells that jingled with every move. Cecilia's was a huge butterfly with shiny wings in the colors of the rainbow. Ferry looked for May as soon as he arrived. He spotted her near Cecilia, holding a gardenia kite adorned with sparkling petals. All the children raised their kites long before the contest started. Cecilia's butterfly kite soared the highest. Even the kite's rope was special, wound around a cylindrical wooden handle. After letting the kite dance in the wind to everyone's admiration, Cecilia's hands grew tired. "Here, hold my kite until I come back," she said, passing the kite's rope to May. "But be very careful," she warned sternly. "If you lose it, you won't be my friend anymore. Or any other child's friend for that matter. I'll make sure no one talks to you again." Then she went to her family's tent to enjoy a lemonade after the effort of holding the kite for so long. May struggled to hold onto the giant butterfly kite as it tugged at her with every gust of wind. She set her own kite aside to prevent Cecilia's from flying away. But despite her efforts, a sudden gust of wind snatched the kite's rope from her grasp, leaving her with tears in her eyes and blood on her palms. The kite soared into the sky at incredible speed, shrinking ever smaller against the backdrop of the clear blue sky. May chased after it desperately, trying to keep it in her sights. The other children noticed the butterfly kite rising higher and higher, pointing excitedly as they watched it ascend. Cecilia soon caught sight of the runaway kite too. She stormed towards May, screaming in fury at the sight of her prized possession drifting away. "What have you done? You fool!" Cecilia yelled, her voice echoing across the hill so that everyone could hear her. "How could you lose my kite?" "I'm so sorry," May mumbled, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You bring it back. You bring it back this instant," Cecilia shouted, her voice filled with anger. "Or I'll be your worst enemy for the rest of your life." "Now go," she said, pushing May away. May trudged down the hill, with a heavy heart. Above her, the kite sailed towards the shepherd's forest. As she drifted farther from the others, her sky-blue dress snagged on dry brambles, and rugged rocks scraped her shoes. But she wasn't alone. Ferry, who witnessed the whole scene, wasted no time in shadowing her. Taking a side path, he swiftly descended the hill, his gaze fixed on May, a solitary figure amidst the muted palette of the landscape. With each faltering step, she seemed to struggle against the Earth's resistance. Up above, Cecilia's kite dwindled to a mere speck against the big canvas of the sky. And to top it all, a tempestuous wind arose, stirring a whirlwind of leaves and twigs in its wake, adding a turbulent cadence to May's already difficult task. Ferry's pace halted abruptly as he strained to discern the faint murmurings coming from the depths of the forest. "Ferry, come and play," called a familiar little voice. The forest stood before him, its canopy reaching for the heavens like steadfast guardians. Despite the season, the leaves retained their vibrant green, adorned with glimmers of gold that danced on the breeze. A thin veil of mist enveloped the trees, and as it swirled around them, it scattered into a bundle of shimmering particles. The call of the forest echoed in Ferry's mind, beckoning him closer. With all his mother's warnings lingered in his thoughts, Ferry found himself drawn to the forest's allure. Ignoring the whispers, he removed his gloves and reached out to touch the rough bark of a nearby tree. A strange sensation tingled in his palms, sending shivers down his spine. It was a feeling unlike any other, akin to reuniting with a long-lost friend after an eternity apart. He nearly forgot why he was there as he heard footsteps drawing near. Peering from behind a tree, he watched as May approached, her gaze fixed on the distant sky where the kite soared. With a silent plea, Ferry extended his hand, willing the kite to descend with all his might. Closing his eyes, he held on to hope, yearning for a touch of magic to grace him. Upon opening his eyes, Ferry beheld a wondrous sight. The speck in the sky turned into a majestic butterfly kite, gracefully descending towards the forest's edge. As it landed among the treetops, it seemed to beckon, inviting Ferry forward. As he stepped into the clearing, he watched in awe as the kite gracefully glided towards him, settling at his feet with surprising ease. Taking hold of the kite's rope, Ferry marveled at the effortless control he wielded. In that moment, May emerged from the shadows, her smile radiant with gratitude. Without saying a word, the two children exchanged a glance, their bond strengthened by the silent magic of the forest. And amidst the whispers of the trees, Ferry felt a sense of belonging unlike any other. "You'll thank me for this someday," reminded him the voice only he could hear. Ferry quietly handed the kite to May and took her hand as they climbed the hill together. Even though May's hand felt cold, Ferry felt warm and happy just being with her. Lost in the moment, he didn't notice the absence of his sunflower-colored gloves, abandoned at the forest's edge near the towering poplar. "Thank goodness you found it," Cecilia cried at the sight of her precious kite. "I was so worried about you, May, of course. Going into that scary forest alone," Cecilia added, giving Ferry a short, sharp glance. Then the two girls walked off together, hand in hand. But before reaching Cecilia's tent, May turned back and smiled at him. The kite contest was the biggest attraction of the festival. The jury was made of one person. It was an old custom, and no one dared to change it. They said that in the past, only one villager, chosen from the most privileged ones, had the right to be a judge. For not the kites, they said, were the ones to compete, but the fairies themselves. The judge was chosen by drawing, and in the past, it was always someone important in town. The mayor, the priest, and the town doctor had all been judges before. This time, Miss Summer wanted to judge too. So Mr. Bell, the headmaster, thought he should remind her about the pride and haughty family's support for the school. He even mentioned how Cecilia's kite looked spectacular this year. But Miss Summer had a different opinion. "Maybe the pride and haughty money can buy the whole school," she said firmly, "but it won't buy me. I can assure you that if Cecilia's kite is the most spectacular one, she will surely win," she added before turning her back to an already furious Mr. Bell. A few moments after their heated conversation, Albert Pride, Billy's father, pulled a piece of paper from the glass bowl. It had Miss Summer's name on it. All the participants gathered at the top of the hill, lining up with their kites. When Mr. Pride gave the signal, the children raised their kites into the air. Cecilia's kite stood out, soaring above the rest, closely followed by Billy's. The giant butterfly, with its colorful wings, soared ever higher. The other kites got tangled up with each other, and most of them struggled to stay airborne. Soon, everyone noticed another kite. The shape of a raven, it boldly rose above the forest, outpacing Cecilia's kite. After a while, the raven kite spread its huge wings with a greenish iridescence as though flying on its own. But there was someone on the other end of the rope. Ferry. All the other children looked at him with admiration and a hint of envy. The kite flew away from the forest and began to descend, then climbed again, this time towards the hills. It flew over people's heads, who could swear its wings were moving, almost as if propelled by a special mechanism. They even felt the breeze from the wings messing up their hair and snatching their hats away. When the contest was over, the raven kite descended slowly and then landed near Ferry as everyone cheered. "I believe we have a winner," Miss Summer said, her face beaming with a smile. She handed Ferry a small iron cup painted in gold. Ferry's eyes sparkled with excitement as he reached for the cup. But as soon as his fingers touched it, a sharp pain shot through his hands and then spread throughout his entire body. With a cry, he dropped the cup, watching as it rolled over to Billy Pride's feet. In an instant, Eileen Donovan was beside her son, examining his wounds. "Ferry, what have I told you about not to take off your gloves?" she scolded him. Under everyone's gaze, Ferry slowly opened his fists. His palms looked as if they'd been pierced, but instead of blood, a white, viscous liquid dripped from the wounds. The most intrigued was Billy Pride, who no matter how carefully he examined the cup, couldn't see any crack that could have caused such wounds. Mrs. Donovan then applied a special potion from a small bottle to her son's wounds. She also retrieved a pair of colored gloves from her handbag and handed them to Ferry. Then, mother and son headed to their tent. Matilda, who had also witnessed the scene, snatched the cup from Billy's hands and hurried to catch up with Ferry. Billy looked behind them for a while. Some hero, he thought. So Ferry could get hurt at the touch of iron. He planned to use that weakness someday. But for now, there was no time. He saw people gathering in small groups, chatting and laughing. It was time for the feast. And for ghost stories.